Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing the political compass test. So I'm just gonna jump right into it and I hope you enjoy. So the first question is, if economic globalization is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interests of transnational corporations. So yeah, I definitely think humanity is more important than corporations, so I agree with that. I'd always support my country whether it was right or wrong. Disagree, strongly disagree, because if your country has a government that you don't like, you don't like, you might not support it. No one chooses their country of birth, so it's foolish to be proud of it. I strongly disagree with that. We don't choose your family, but you're still proud of your family. I can't remember who it was, but there was someone I watched on the Daily Wire who done this and said something about how you don't choose your mother, but you can still be proud of your mother. And same goes with the country. You may not choose your country, but if you're proud of it, there's nothing wrong with that. Our race has many superior qualities compared to other races. Disagree. I mean, even the fact of having a question like that in there, I mean, the answer's obvious. You'd have to be a lunatic to answer that. I strongly agree, but they put the question there anyway, so that's kind of how it's a left-wing quiz. The results might be a bit more shifted to the right or left because it's written by someone with biased views. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. General statement. I'm criticizing the quiz a bit, but I mean that could be interpreted in many different ways. I think in the context I'm thinking of, so in terms of like if you go into war or something like that, then typically I agree, not always, but as a general idea, I agree with it. Military action that defies international law is sometimes justified. I strongly disagree. There are some people who like as I mentioned in the Daily Wire, who disagree with or strongly agree with this question. Sorry. My opinion on it is that if there is international law, all countries should stick by it, and we can't expect countries we dislike to adhere to it if we're not adhering to it ourselves. At least we'll have them on high ground if they, for some reason, try to break international law, which may sound like kind of stupid because obviously in war you think, well, why is the moral high ground important? But when we need allies and things like that, the moral high ground will help us in that way. There is now a worrying fusion of information and entertainment. Well, the thing is, I think there is to an extent, but I disagree because it's impractical. Because you would have to have someone to regulate the media, the entertainment. So you have to have someone to look through all different entertainment and say whether it's right or wrong, and some of it will be subjective. So I think that type of control is wrong and impractical. So I disagree. People are ultimately divided more by class than nationality. I strongly disagree. I am from a working class background and I've never had any problems with like talking to people in different classes. Whereas if someone's come from a different culture and they're newly here into the UK, for example, it may be hard to relate to them in certain ways. So I definitely disagree. Again, the Daily Wire made a point about this, which is worth looking at if you're interested. I won't say it here because I don't want to get in trouble or anything. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. I strongly agree. You can't really control unemployment because you can't force people to work. You can open up vacancies, but you can't force people to go into them. And inflation is very important to control anyway, because I mean, as we all know, in the UK with the cost of living crisis, high interest rate means everything goes up. Rent, bills, food, general living, it becomes really difficult. And sometimes measures that are painful have to be introduced to control it, but I think it's important that we do. Because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulation. I don't think companies by themselves would ever want to protect the environment, because not that it's good or bad, but a company's main goal is to make a profit, and environment protecting legislation reduces profit. So I agree to an extent that we do need some, because they won't do it by themselves, but there shouldn't be so much that it restricts the business and reduces competition in the UK, because that hits the economy and then hits everyone else who lives here. From each according to his ability to each according to his need is a fundamentally good idea. Definitely not. I mean, this is from one of Stalin's books, just to put it into perspective. But if we do, so that by itself makes it, in my opinion, a bad statement to agree with. But if we think about it technically, who's going to decide who has what ability, and who's going to control who has what needs? It's stupid. It's a question about equality, and it promotes inequality. Secretly, though, they never tell you that, but that's what it actually does. The freer the market, the freer the people. Definitely agree. It's a sad reflection on our society that something as basic as drinking water is now a bottled, branded consumer product. I definitely disagree. It doesn't hurt anyone. If someone wants to make a profit by doing that, go ahead. I don't buy bottled water, but if you want to, then you get water, they get a profit. There's no problem. Land shouldn't be a commodity to be bought and sold. Strongly disagree. What else are you going to do with it? Fight over it. Don't really want any more wars, thanks. It is regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by people who simply manipulate money and contribute nothing to their society. Again, a biased question. You have to learn the stock market. You can't just manipulate it, and you're giving money to companies, which is helping them grow, helping private enterprise, helping competition, which helps the economy. So, I strongly disagree with that. Protectionism is sometimes necessary in trade. I disagree. I think on the rare occasion it sometimes is, but it's more harmful than good. There's very few situations where it's a good thing, I think. The only social responsibility of a company should be to deliver a profit to its shareholders. I agree. I mean, I don't think businesses should technically have to have any social responsibility. Have any opinions on certain things. It shouldn't be regulated by anyone. If they want to believe whatever they want, they can. The rich are too highly taxed. I strongly agree. That's just kind of evident. Look at the UK. Those with the ability to pay should have access to higher standards of healthcare. I strongly agree. I don't think that the NHS in the UK should be privatised, but if you have enough money and you want to buy private healthcare, get an insurance plan, then there's no problem with that. It's their money, and it's not for the government to regulate how they spend it. Governments should penalise businesses that mislead the public. Generally, yeah, I agree with that. A genuine free market requires restrictions on the ability of predator multinationals to create monopolies. I agree. These questions are a bit more controversial, so I won't go so much in depth into them, but I'll discuss them more individually in different videos. So, abortion, when a woman's life is not threatened, should always be illegal. I strongly agree. All authority should be questioned. I agree. Makes sense. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. This is one of these really general statements again, but I disagree with that statement generally. Not all cases, because it could be literally mean anything. It's open-ended statements, but taxpayers should not be expected to prop up any theatres or museums that cannot survive on a commercial basis. I strongly agree with that. Schools should not make classroom attendance compulsory. I strongly agree. You should have the option of homeschooling and online schooling if that's what you want to do. All people have their rights, but it is better for all of us that different sorts of people should keep to their own kind. Disagree. Again, biased question. I don't even need to say it anymore. I mean, you guys probably already see it. Um, Good parents sometimes have to spank their children. I disagree. You don't have to. I got spanked as a child, but it's not a bad thing. It's just different ways of raising children. I think it's a necessarily good or bad thing. It's natural for children to keep secrets from their parents. I strongly agree. Sorry about that, guys. If you see like a weird like jump there, my battery dies. So I've had to just go and charge it and redo it. So anyway, carrying on. Possessing marijuana for personal use should not be a criminal offence. So I strongly agree with this because, like, people are going to take it anyway, and if it's better it to go into the private sector than the like pockets of drug dealers, because then taxes paid on it and it ends up helping the economy. So I think it should be legalized just for that. I don't necessarily think it's a good idea to do it. Same with alcohol, but you know, there might well be some type of like profit from it if people are going to do it anyway. The prime function of schooling should be to equip the future generation to find jobs. I agree. People with serious inheritable disabilities should not be allowed to reproduce. Now, you know, who in the right mind would agree with that? Again, who would even regulate that? The most important thing for children is to learn to accept discipline. Disagree. There are no savage and civilized peoples. There are only different cultures. I disagree with this because if you think too about like North Korea, for example, they are savage. I mean, they have concentration camps, and people aren't allowed to leave their own country and all sorts. I think that is savage, and I think that is bad. So I disagree with that statement. Those who are able to work and refuse the opportunity should not expect society support. Definitely not. When you are troubled, it's better not to think about it, but to keep busy with more cheerful things. I uh, strongly agree with that. That's how I deal with my problems. First generation immigrants can never be fully integrated within their new country. I disagree. I mean, if you try hard enough, I don't see any reason why you can't. What's good for the most successful corporations is always ultimately good for all of us. Um, I wouldn't say always, but I think yeah, actually, I'm going to agree with that because I don't think it always is a benefit to the people, but I think most times it is. No broadcasting institution, however independent its content, should receive public funding. I agree with that. Our civil liberties are being excessively curbed in the name of counter-terrorism. I strongly agree. A significant advantage of a one-party state is that it avoids all the arguments that delay the progress in a democratic political system. So basically, communism. I mean, what else is it? So, yeah, I strongly disagree on that one. Although the electronic age makes official surveillance easier, only wrongdoers need to be worried. I disagree because you have corrupt politicians who, you know, will look at anyone. The death penalty should be an option for the most serious crimes. I strongly agree with that, and I wish they would bring it back in the UK because when you have like these horrible crimes that people commit, like rape and murder, I mean, I think it should be an option. I think you forfeit your right to life, as Margaret Thatcher once said. If you do those type of things. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. In a civilized society, one must always have people above to be obeyed and people to be commanded. I strongly disagree. Well, yeah, yeah. Abstract art that doesn't represent anything shouldn't be considered art at all. I agree with that. In criminal justice, punishment should be more important than rehabilitation. I agree to an extent because I think some can be rehabilitated, but there are certain criminals that are just too far gone and they can't be. Which leads on to the next question of, is it a waste of time to try and to rehabilitate some criminals? And yeah, I strongly agree with that, because there are some that just cannot be, and they are repeat offenders, you know. The business person and manufacturer are more important than the writer and the artist. I strongly disagree with that one. I think both are just as important as each other. Mothers may have careers, but their first duty is to be homemakers. I disagree. You can be either, you can be both, but there shouldn't be one or the other. I think that's actually misogynistic to think that it could only be one or the other. Multinational companies are unethically exploiting the plant genetic resources for developing countries. I strongly disagree. I think this is talking about like GMO foods, um, genetically modified foods. And I think it's a benefit because we pay less as the taxpayer to fund international aid, but they still get quality aid by giving them GMO foods. And there's all this worry about there being side effects. I don't think there is, so I have no problem with it. Making peace with the establishment is an important aspect of maturity. I strongly disagree. Astrology accurately explains many things. So, funnily enough, when I was a left winger myself, I did believe in astrology and I was like so for it, but nowadays I think it's stupid, so I strongly disagree. You cannot be moral without being religious. I disagree. I believe I'm moral and I'm an atheist. I think to be moral, you'll have values that align with some religious values, but not all. But that doesn't make those values specifically religious. They're just different values. Charity is better than social security as a means of helping the generally disadvantaged. I agree. It decreases the tax on the taxpayer, and as I've mentioned, people who earn higher wages are actually more likely to give to charity, and it's obvious. So I think the people who are less well off would be in good hands anyway that way, and it would remove the government's interference in regulating all of that type of stuff, which I fully support. Some people are naturally unlucky. I strongly disagree. It's important that my child's school instills religious values. So I agree, but not because of it being religious values, but it's because religious values tend to be moral values. Not all of them, but some of them. Sex outside marriage is usually immoral. I strongly disagree. This is one of these religious values that I think is immoral, because I don't think there's any problem with it. A same sex couple in a stable, loving relationship should not be excluded from the possibility of child adoption. I strongly agree. I mean, if it helps the children, it helps the children. Pornography depicting consenting adults should be legal for the adult population. I strongly agree. I don't think the government should have any sort of control over what adults do as long as it doesn't break the law. What goes on in a private bedroom between consenting adults is no business of the state. Again, like I just mentioned, they have no business, so yeah, I strongly agree with that. No one can feel naturally homosexual. I strongly disagree. These days, openness about sex has gone too far. I strongly agree with that one. Yeah, so that was the test. That was everything. So let's see where I stand. So I am a right wing libertarian, which is about right. I think I'm quite far right wing according to this test. I've always seen myself more as like a centre right, but as I said, this quiz has a bit of left wing bias, so that might have something to do with it. Um, but yeah, generally it seems right. So yeah, they used to have like a template of different like political figures on this test, and I remember they always had like Margaret Thatcher in like the extreme right authoritarian, like almost as right wing as Hitler, which I think is just insane. I think they must have removed it because they must have got some type of like backlash from it or something. But um, yeah, ridiculous. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you want to do the test yourself, I'll leave a link in the description if you want to have a go. And yeah, so the next few videos will be me either doing more quizzes like this, or I'll be reacting to like certain debates and things like that that I've seen recently. So if you're interested in any of that stuff and want to stick around, then please subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye.